Welcome to Backroom Brief. My name is Drew Pearson, where we discover into the forces shaping our society, politics, and future. The latest political battles that are shaking up America's political landscape. In today's episode, we're exploring the 2025 Project, heavily backed by Trump allies and conservative think tanks like the Heritage Foundation, outlines a sweeping vision for reshaping America after Donald Trump's return to the White House. This document serves as both a playbook and manifesto, detailing the systemic changes Trump and his supporters intend to implement to consolidate power, dismantle progressive policies, and impose their version of a restored America. The scope of this plan is vast, covering virtually every aspect of governance and society, and reflects a sharp departure from the democratic principles that have long defined the United States. In this expanded analysis, we'll examine the key points of the 2025 Project, focusing on its implications for governance, civil liberties, social justice, and the rule of law. At the heart of the 2025 Project is a radical restructuring of the federal government to concentrate power in the executive branch. Key strategies include Schedule F expansion. Trump introduced the concept of Schedule F during his presidency, creating a new classification of federal employees who could be easily fired. The 2025 Project plans to re-implement and expand this classification, targeting tens of thousands of career civil servants deemed obstacles to the administration's agenda. Purging the deep state. The project frames career government employees, particularly those in intelligence, justice, and regulatory agencies, as part of a so-called deep state that undermines conservative goals. It proposes mass firings and replacements with loyalists who adhere to Trump's ideology, centralized decision-making by weakening congressional oversight and reducing the autonomy of agencies like the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, and the Department of Education. The president would have unprecedented control over policy and enforcement. Immigration overhaul. Immigration policy is central to the 2025 Project, with an emphasis on reducing non-white immigration and reshaping the demographic makeup of the United States. Key proposals include reinstating and expanding the Muslim ban, a return to restrictive travel bans targeting predominantly Muslim-majority countries, framed as national security measures, ending birthright citizenship, challenging the 14th Amendment to deny citizenship to children born to undocumented immigrants, mass deportations, utilizing executive orders to ramp up deportation efforts, targeting millions of undocumented immigrants, regardless of their ties to U.S. communities or their duration of residency, militarizing the border, deploying more troops and funding for border walls, surveillance technology, and harsher enforcement measures, attacks on civil rights and social justice. The 2025 Project seeks to dismantle progress made in civil rights, particularly in areas of racial justice, LGBTQ+ equality, and women's rights. Rolling back LGBTQ protections, the project aims to reverse marriage equality, restrict adoption rights for same-sex couples, and reinstate bans on transgender individuals in the military and public life. Banning DI initiatives, diversity, equity, and inclusion programs in workplaces, schools, and public institutions would be eliminated, with states following the lead of recent laws passed in places like Florida and Texas. Restricting women's rights. Nationwide bans on abortion are a top priority, along with policies that hinder women's access to contraceptives, health care, and workplace protections. Reshaping education curriculum overhaul, imposing patriotic education, curricula that glorify America's history while minimizing or erasing its darker chapters, including slavery, racism, and systemic oppression. Silencing educators threatening teachers with job loss or legal action for discussing topics deemed inappropriate by conservative lawmakers. Erosion of voting rights. The project proposes numerous measures to restrict voting access, disproportionately affecting minority and low-income communities. Voter ID laws. Enacting strict voter ID requirements nationwide, despite evidence that such laws suppress turnout among marginalized groups. Closing polling places following the lead of Republican-led states that have reduced polling locations in predominantly Black and Hispanic neighborhoods. gerrymandering, aggressively redrawing district maps to entrench Republican majorities in Congress and state legislatures, weaponizing religion, blurring church and state, encouraging religious institutions to influence policy and elections while enjoying tax-exempt status, weakening global alliances, exiting NATO. Trump has repeatedly criticized NATO, and his return could lead to an American withdrawal, destabilizing global security. Trade wars, reinstating tariffs and trade policies that isolate the U.S. economically, even at the expense of domestic industries. Cozying up to autocrats, strengthening ties with authoritarian regimes, as seen in Trump's relationships with leaders like Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un. Reshaping the judiciary. The judiciary is a central focus, with plans to appoint more ultra-conservative judges who will uphold this agenda for decades. Packing the courts, expanding the federal judiciary with judges loyal to Trump's vision. Restricting judicial independence. Limiting the ability of courts to check executive overreach or rule against conservative policies. Surveillance and militarization. Mass surveillance. Increasing the scope of domestic surveillance programs under the guise of combating crime and terrorism. Militarized police funding and resources for police departments to adopt military-grade equipment and tactics. The question now is whether Americans will recognize the dangers of this blueprint and mobilize to prevent it, or if the country will plunge headlong into this new era of authoritarianism. The stakes couldn't be higher. The 2025 project is more than a roadmap. It's a declaration of intent. If implemented, its proposals would fundamentally reshape American society, concentrating power in the hands of a select few while dismantling hard-won rights and protections for millions. The vision it presents is one of control, exclusion, and regression, with devastating implications for democracy, justice, and equality. Thanks for tuning in to Backroom Brief. I'm Drew Pearson. Stay informed, stay engaged, and we'll catch you in the next episode. Please subscribe and like the show so that we can keep you informed.